and he's 56 years old, so he's like way older than me. Like mine should not be that low, no matter how much stress or whatever I'm going through, it should not be that low.
What's going on YouTube, it's Jason, and today we're going to be speaking about probably the biggest elephant in the room when it comes to the fitness industry, and that is steroid use, or more specifically of late, testosterone replacement therapy. Now, testosterone replacement therapy, or TRT, has been around for a while, but in the past it was used in older men or people who had clinically low testosterone. What you're seeing is these days is a lot of fitness influencers, in a bid to look better, are jumping on TRT. And you know the funniest slash most annoying thing about it all is that all these influencers tend to follow one of two patterns. They either, number one, are on steroids for a long time and are lying about it. They then come off steroids, their natural testosterone drops, and therefore they need TRT to get them back up to normal, but they don't speak about their past steroid use. All they say is, I need TRT because my levels are low. Or they are in fact natural, as they say to their followers, but they just get to a stage where they want to jump on steroids, and then they start complaining about all the low testosterone symptoms to kind of get sympathy from their followers to jump on TRT. The reason this is funny is because they think they're being genuine, but to me it all comes across fake. They all tend to come out with these revelations once they've made their millions, convinced their followers, and sold millions of programs. Then it's like, guys, I thought I would come clean. And by that point, it's kind of too late. Now, before I get into specific examples, I want to start by saying two things. I wouldn't take steroids and I wouldn't recommend them for anybody else, but I'm not necessarily against someone else taking steroids. I.e., if someone took steroids and they weren't taking it in natural competition against natural athletes, and they were taking it safely under medical supervision, rather than most people just getting their steroids from Dave down the gym, then you're an adult, I couldn't care less, I'm not going to get on a moral high ground and start attacking all those who take steroids. And the second thing I want to say is that I have a lot of respect for those that are open about their steroid usage. Just to name a few examples, Joe Aesthetics was super open about his steroid usage, rest in peace, and I always really respected him for that. And also Brandon Harding from day one just mentioned the fact he took steroids and warned people of the risks. That is completely upright, moral and ethical behaviour. I have no problems with that. What I hate is the sob stories and the manipulation, so I want to go through some examples. Now, the first example is Steve Cook. Now, Steve Cook is a hugely successful fitness influencer who's been around for at least 10 years in the fitness industry, definitely one of the OGs. And to be honest, he never explicitly said that he was natural. He just had a physique that looked questionable, regularly entered bodybuilding competitions, and then only really started to come out about drug use in the last few years, once he's made his millions, of course. And he did this video recently called Coming Clean, where he bears all and speaks about the stuff that he's been taking to resurrect his testosterone levels, but doesn't really mention the fact that he's been abusing for years and that's why his levels are low. Anyways, let's give it a watch.
You started the enclomiphene and the HCG, right?
I took DHEA as well. We've just had so much stress. Part of me is like, I still don't feel like I've optimized my natural. I would love to see if I could get my natural testosterone to like 750 or 800. I don't know if that's in the cards, but like if I waited a year after TRT with the right supplementation to get my natural testosterone higher again.
By the way, HCG, enclomiphene and DHEA are all banned in athletic competition. So as much as I am empathetic with what Steve is going through, there are a few things that grate at me. The first is that he's going through the same influencer route of trying to get sympathy from his followers about him being stressed out and having a difficult time. But then his solution to that is talking about TRT. And it's like, if you're stressed out, just get therapy. If you're stressed out, maybe train less or look for alternative remedies. Steroids is not a natural solution to that. Secondly, a lot of these guys tend to speak about getting older and their testosterone declining. Now, Steve is 38, your testosterone declines about 1% a year from the age of 30. So, all things being normal, 8 years of testosterone decline isn't necessarily having your test levels crashing. Yes, there will be a difference from when you were 21, but that's because when you're at 21, it's like at its peak. But it's not a reason for a normal healthy man to jump on TRT. What we are not speaking about is that Steve was doing competitions for a long time, getting excessively lean and holding on to a lot of muscle. And so what it sounds like, and if I were to read between the lines, Steve has been abusing for probably a long time and came off the steroids, and when you come off steroids, your test levels are lower than when you started. And so this is what I mean. Rather than saying I've been abusing for the best part of a decade, my test levels are on the floor, I want to resurrect them and also achieve a better physique, you kind of go through this sob story to make people empathize with why you might eventually jump on TRT. So this is the classic influencer being somewhat transparent, but admitting the things that actually matter. Anyways, moving on to the second example of HowToBeast. He's a 30-something-year-old influencer, early 30s I think, and he goes on to explain why he's getting on TRT. Now, he is, again, somewhat transparent. He speaks about eventually wanting to achieve a better physique and seeing what TRT does to his body, which, if I'm honest, is the main reason a lot of these guys get on TRT. But obviously that sounds quite vain and shallow when you're putting your health at risk, so they always start off with a sob story. Let's hear.
Because in my late 20s, I'd started noticing that I was not recovering as quickly from my workouts. I was feeling a bit more fatigued all the time, and this was the same time my life was getting busier than ever. You know, YouTube grinded up to 1 million subscribers. We had just launched Edge and some other businesses, and that's when I made the difficult decision to start TRT.
So my recovery was a bit below average and I was feeling a bit fatigued. Again, yes, these are symptoms of low T. I'm going to go through the full symptoms of low T at the end of this video so that you can compare for yourself, but these things in and of themselves are not necessarily indicative of the fact that you have low testosterone, especially not at the age of, like, I think he was 28 or 29 at the time.
And also, I'd been lifting naturally for about 8 or 9 years. I felt like I had basically maxed out my genetic potential, and I was curious to see if I got doctor prescribed TRT with regular blood work, could I increase my physique to the next level?
Finally, we get the truth. Just lead with that. Again, no one really cares about steroid use if you're transparent. It's your body. But don't sit here trying to sell a sob story and manipulate your followers who believed you were natural. The last two examples completely blow my mind. These boys are 22 years old when you should be in the height of your powers in terms of testosterone and growth hormone. Yet one of them is actually on TRT and the other one is trying to play the typical fitness influencer, get the violin out, look how low my T is, so you can justify getting on T. So without further ado, number 3, Nathan French. Even though his testosterone should be at an all-time high, let's hear his reason for jumping on TRT.
I don't know what else you would do with your physique because you look great. So what was the reason? Was there something that you were trying to fix?
Yeah, it was more of just like, I was having trouble just like recovering after what I did. I just kept digging myself in the hole. I couldn't really, like, I felt awful like getting out of bed. I was like sweating in my sheets because my body was so stressed out.
So you couldn't recover properly, you felt awful getting out of bed, and you were sweating in your sleep. Now, of course, these symptoms are obviously uncomfortable and would affect your quality of life, but let's go on to see how this guy trains, and you might get some context.
So the way I balance weightlifting and running is Monday I have a heavy day, Tuesday I have a light day, Wednesdays I have a heavy day, Thursday I have a light day, Friday I have a heavy day, Saturday I have a light day, and Sunday I have off. And then the way my run is set up throughout this whole program is I always have 2 to 3 off days on my running program.
6 weight sessions a week, 3 of which are heavy days. So you are going to be absolutely annihilating your central nervous system. That's going to make you feel rubbish. And what, 4 or 5 days of running with only 2 or 3 days off per week. Now, you don't need a rocket scientist to tell you that your chances of overtraining absolutely increase like tenfold. So you're basically training like a maniac, which led to overtraining symptoms, and now you're trying to have a sob story for why you need TRT. Why don't you just back off the training and maybe raise your body fat level to a more normal level, and who knows, maybe your hormones might recover. Anyways, moving on to the second 22-year-old and the final example I want to use, we have Alex Eubank. Now again, another successful fitness influencer with over 1 million subscribers on YouTube. Training programs, everything you name it, clothing, he's got it all. But now he's moved on to the typical influencer thing of essentially speaking about how his hormones have crashed, and how he needs to potentially fix them and how he's got a decision to make.
I thought this would be cool to go over because this is pretty serious. This is pretty serious, and like I have a big decision that I need to make. We did my test being low. Here it is. So in August 2020, my total test was at 461. Recently, I just got it checked again, and that's what I just went over with Bradley. My total test was 215, and he's 56 years old, so he's like way older than me. Like, mine should not be that low. No matter how much stress or whatever I'm going through, it should not be that low.
Again, it's all just suspect stuff. I would honestly have no issues if you just said, do you know what, I've been training for 6 to 8 years, my physique has kind of ground to a halt, I want to go to the next level, I'm considering TRT. I would say, you're an adult, it's up to you, take it safely and do your thing. But because they have such a loyal following, and because they've made so much money, quote unquote, going the natty route, it feels like they're trying to win their followers over by getting them to understand their rationale for taking drugs. Just be honest. Stop this nonsense about, oh, low T, I can't function. It's really not that deep. The symptoms of low testosterone, when they're actually quite bad, are more than just a bit of fatigue or a little bit of stress. We are talking muscle and bone wastage. We are talking struggling to sleep, chronic fatigue, and also a lack of concentration and drive. It doesn't just manifest in one thing. A lot of these guys are talking about, oh, a bit of fatigue and a bit of stress, which really could be anything, and certainly not a medical reason for jumping on TRT. Namely because TRT comes with serious health risks, i.e., if someone is on TRT, they increase their risk of cardiovascular disease and also brain disease. So it only really makes sense if your testosterone is so low and your symptoms are so severe that the benefits of taking testosterone actually outweigh the risks of potentially not taking testosterone. So hopefully you have a little bit more insight into the fitness industry and TRT. As I said, it's rife, and there'll probably be more fitness influencers coming out with health reasons as to why they were backed into a corner and forced to take TRT. Hope you enjoyed that video anyway, something a little bit different, a bit of a rant. Don't forget to like it, comment below for the algorithm, it massively helps. Please subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.